So Stripe, we're used to receiving payments from you. Everyone loves your design and documentation, but how good is your API? So let's assume for a moment that you don't know who Stripe are. They're a payment provider, allowing you to get money from others on the internet. They are the first payment provider that was developer focused. As you can see, it's a nice website, we can't deny that one. The documentation is fantastic. It is clean, clear. As you can see, very good language support. Ruby, Python, PHP, Java, Node, Go, .NET. However, there are also many community libraries for those that may not be first-party supported as well. And with the quality of the API documentation, you can be guaranteed that your language, your framework is supported. So Stripe have got two different options for authenticating through their API. You can use the HTTP basic auth or the authorization bearer token. Either one is up to you, but I prefer the bearer token personally. They've got some pretty good information on the errors page. 200 OK, 400 bad request, 401 unauthorized, 402 request failed, 403 forbidden, 409 conflict. The request conflicts with another request, perhaps due to the same idempotent key. We'll get onto that in a moment. 429, too many requests. Any of the kind of 500 range is server errors, so oops, we've done something wrong. Then you've got some information here about error types as well. API error, card error, idempotency error, invalid request error. So they really go into detail on the different types of errors, which is really nice to see. They've got a really nice expanded response. So many objects allow you to request additional information as an expanded response. Let's talk about idempotent requests. What this means is that you can retry requests, the same request, without having the same side effects. Stripe, perfect example. We want to take money from your account. We send the post request. It's actioned. It's successful. The exact same request comes in again because of a glitch or something happened. Using the same idempotency key allows you to not have the same side effect but get the same response back. It is perhaps one of the most important and less used headers that I've seen in APIs today. Stripe's versioning just blows people's minds. They've got their own way of doing things, and it's kind of like it's a date stamp that is tied to a specific deployment, which kind of makes sense, which is fine. It is weird, don't get me wrong. We got it in the URL as well as in the Stripe version and the header. Just so much to unpack there. I always like to start with a list operation for any endpoint that I look at. It gives me a good baseline to see how they've approached their API and tells us how they deal with potentially paginated data, any filtering, sorting, how serious are they on that API themselves. So they accept multiple different parameters in the query object, such as email or created, ending before limits, starting after, test clock. Lots of cool options for us there. It gives us a list object back so we know how to interact with the data that they're giving us. But again, I'm not seeing any status codes. I mean, I would assume that this would give me a 200 response, right? But it would be nice for them to actually let us know so that we know how to be more specific around our integration with their API. So let's create a customer. We send a post request to V1 customers. We pass over our authentication token, and then we want to send a body. Everything is optional. Now I kind of get it. You might want guest checkout, so they're not technically a customer, but you need a customer record. Okay, I'll give you that. We can live with that. The payload's pretty nice, pretty standard, but where's my response code? Are we getting a 200 response? We're getting a 201. Has it been created? Is it a 202? You're going to create it in the background. Give me some information in the documentation around status codes, because they are vital to my understanding of your API. If you've created it instantly, I know I can then act upon it. If you're creating it in the background, then I might want to add some sort of artificial delay before I make any additional calls around that customer or that reference. I don't know what's happening there. Finally, let's look at the deleting a customer. I do a delete request to V1 customers passing through that reference ID. Obviously, I've got to pass over my authentication token, and with no additional parameters required, and we return an object with the ID of what we just deleted, the object that we deleted, in this case a customer, and a boolean of deleted. Was it deleted or was it not deleted? So again, I'm not seeing any status codes. Has it been instantly deleted? Is it going to be deleted? That is my biggest bugbear with any API, is when they don't tell me what's going on. I asked you to do something. Has it been done, or is it going to be done? I need to know that to know how to move forward. Let's upload our specification to API Insights. We drop our API spec into API Insights. Give it a few seconds. So, D's across the board. Kind of shocking. But let's dive into it a little bit more. If you haven't seen any of these videos before, if we click this button here, we can see how we calculate this information. We score things on a scale of A to F, which equates back to a percentage. The higher, the better. We've got a D for design, a D for performance, and a D for security. I mean, at least it's consistent, right? So let's look at this design. Obviously, we're passing JSON support, robust responses, using multiple HTTP methods. You are versioning, very complex versioning mostly, but you are versioning. We haven't got consistent noun usage, there's not consistent pluralization, and we're not detecting any rate limiting in your specification. I'm assuming there's some rate limiting going on somewhere, but who knows? Do you want to rate limit how quick you accept payments? Probably not. The consistent pluralization, so there are some action-focused endpoints here, so the pluralization may not be as important, so we could probably bump that one up a little bit. Maybe it gets a C. So now let's look at this performance. You're using HTTP2, you've got good load time and your caching, not detecting any compression or CDN usage. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. And obviously response size we skip, because we can't tell enough from a specification and one single request to your API. So we'd need something like Treblle SDK installed on the API to really understand that response size, to make an average aggregate across all of your requests. So as usual, let's look at security, because security is one of the most important factors when you look at an API. You got a D, which isn't bad. You are actually setting strict transport security, which you're one of the first APIs that I've noticed while doing this that actually does that. So thank you. You're authorizing all requests, and all requests have secure URLs. I'm not seeing content type options, content security policy. I'm not seeing any additional headers that I might like to see when it comes to securing my API. Finally, as I always like to do, I like to export my report as a PDF so that I can refer back to it, I can share it internally, and I can kind of understand where we were at a specific point of testing. And as usual, I like to share any report that I generate. I add it to my notes just so that I've got a point I can go back to. So In conclusion, Stripe, you've got some of the best documentation out there. You've got some of the nicest designs that I've seen on any website. Your API is very good. Your API documentation for your Open API Spec is good. I want to know more about your responses. I want to understand from a HTTP level what's going on. A paragraph is great telling me what happens and side effects, but I want to know the HTTP status code. Overall, it is good. I think we've maybe been a little bit strict on some of these checks. I would potentially bump you up to a C or a B, given what I know about your API, but you got a D. There's some things you could possibly do better, but you've got a good API, and it is, of course, approved by Steve. So if you want to check how good your API is, you can use API Insights by going to apiinsights.io or searching the Mac store for API Insights to use a native client.